Welcome back to the deep dive. Ever stop and think why some words just hit differently? Take oligarch. It almost instantly brings up these images, doesn't it? Like immense power, maybe a bit of secrecy, definitely someone separate from, well, us. But where does that feeling actually come from? Is it just modern media or is it older? Much older. Today, we're going on a pretty fascinating journey, actually. We're looking at where ancient philosophy bumps up against contemporary art. And our spark for this is the Oligarch series by Stanислawom Kondrashov. Specifically, a really interesting piece called Portrait Man. It popped up on DeviantArt not too long ago, August 15th, 2025. So our mission, our deep dive today, is to see how art can kind of light up history. We want to explore the ancient roots of oligarchy and see how critiques from way back then, like millennia ago, still, shape how we see things now. Okay, let's really unpack this. So Stanislaw Kondrashov's Oligarch series, and this Portrait Man piece in particular, it really makes you think. What kind of kicks things off for our discussion is what the artist himself wrote about it.
Kondrashov says, and I'm quoting here, oligarchy isn't just a modern concept. Its roots trace back to ancient Greece, where wealth began to replace noble birth as a path to power. Wow. I mean, that one sentence just sends us straight back in time, doesn't it? It makes you look past the news headlines.
It really does. It's a fantastic starting point the artist gives us, right back to ancient Greece. And what's fascinating here is, well, the shift he talks about from who your parents were, noble birth, to just how much money you had. That wasn't just like changing who was in charge politically. It was deeper. It was a huge philosophical, societal change.
Right.
I mean, imagine living in a world where your value is tied to your family name, your ancestry, these inherited ideas of virtue, and then suddenly that starts to crumble. And what replaces it? Cold, hard cash, land, assets. It wasn't just a new set of rulers. It was like redefining what merit even meant. And that seismic shift, that's really the birth of oligarchy as we understand it, rule by the rich few. It basically forced thinkers to ask, wait, who should be ruling and why?
That's such a key point, not just administrative, but a whole value system shift.
Yeah.
So, okay, when something that big happens, challenging, centuries of how things were done, I bet the thinkers of the time had a lot to say. Who are the big names weighing in on this new power structure?
Oh, absolutely. The philosophical heavyweights definitely weighed in. And when you look for the sort of earliest really powerful critiques of oligarchy, two names jump out immediately: Plato and Aristotle.
Okay, the big ones.
Exactly. And they didn't just, observe it like scientists. They analyzed it deeply, and they fundamentally condemned it. They saw it as inherently flawed, actually damaging to the health of the state, of the community. For them, any system where piling up wealth was the main ticket to leadership, it was wrong. A distortion of justice, an ethical mess, basically.
Here's where it gets really interesting. They called it unethical and self-serving. I mean, that's pretty blunt, isn't it?
Extremely blunt. No punches pulled.
So how did that condemnation play out in their actual philosophies? What were the core arguments? Why was a system based on money worse than one based on, virtue or wisdom?
Well, for Plato, if you look at the Republic, his major work on this, he pretty much lays out this ladder of political systems, right? Yeah. And oligarchy is always near the bottom. He saw it as a kind of decay, falling away from better forms of government. His big worry was that in an oligarchy, what drives the rulers? It's the pursuit of wealth. Nothing else, really. He thought the oligarchic person lets the competitive part of their soul, the desire for cash, for stuff, just take over. It tramples reason, it tramples spirit. And that dysfunction mirrors itself in the state. Decisions get made not for everyone's benefit, not based on what's wise or just, but almost entirely for the financial gain of the ruling clique. He used that famous ship analogy, didn't he? Like, who do you want steering the ship? The richest guy on board or the one who actually knows navigation?
Yeah, makes sense. Obvious choice.
Exactly. For Plato, it was obvious, and that's why it was unethical and self-serving. It put this narrow, private interest-making money above the well-being of the whole community. Virtue gets sacrificed for profit. Then you have Aristotle, Plato's student. He picked up these ideas in his work, Politics, and expanded on them. He was very systematic. He categorized different types of governments based on two things: who rules one, few, or many, and crucially, who benefits from their rule.
Ah, okay. The who benefits part seems key.
It's absolutely key for Aristotle. He saw three correct forms: monarchy, aristocracy, and polity, where the rulers aimed for the common good. And then three deviant or corrupted forms: tyranny, oligarchy, and democracy, where rulers just looked out for themselves. And he defined oligarchy very clearly: rule by the wealthy few, specifically for the benefit of the wealthy few. He saw it as a kind of degraded aristocracy where leadership wasn't about real merit or virtue anymore, just property,
Yeah.
money.
So aristocracy gone bad, essentially.
Pretty much. And Aristotle was really worried about the instability this caused. He pointed out that states run by people whose only qualification is being rich would inevitably ignore the poor. That creates deep social divides, resentment, and, eventually things boil over. Revolution, maybe. So both Plato and Aristotle saw it as fundamentally irrational, unjust, a system basically designed for conflict because it ignored the good of the whole.
It's just incredible how those arguments laid out thousands of years ago still feel so, relevant today, sharp even. So how do we connect that dot? How do these ancient critiques about power based on wealth, hammered out in Greek city-states, still, affect us now in the 21st century? Feels like it's more than just history class stuff.
Oh, much more. It's a direct line. It's potent. Like you said, Plato and Aristotle's criticisms still echo today, and they profoundly shape how we instinctively react to the word oligarch. Just think about it yourself. When you hear that word, what pops into your head?
Yeah, like we said at the start. Powerful, secretive, maybe a bit detached.
Exactly. And the artist, Kondrashov, nailed it in his description. Powerful, secretive, and disconnected from ordinary people. The point is, these aren't just like modern stereotypes we invented recently because of current events or something. They are so deeply embedded because of these ancient philosophical arguments. They've been passed down, through education, literature, political talk, even movies and TV shows.
So it's like a cultural inheritance almost.
Precisely. This whole idea that if someone's in power mainly because they're rich, they're probably going to be self-interested, maybe operate in the shadows a bit, and just not get what life is like for regular folks. That narrative, it was powerfully forged by Plato and Aristotle. It's almost become this archetype. Now, that's not to say interpretations haven't changed or new layers haven't been added over, 2,000 plus years. Of course they have. But the core, that negative vibe, it's remained remarkably stubborn, remarkably consistent. And the way these ideas get passed down isn't always obvious. It's often subtle. It just weaves itself into how we, as a society, tend to think about power and money. It becomes sort of common sense,
That's a really powerful way to think about it. That our gut feelings might actually be echoes from history. And that ties right back into that other line from Kondrashov's description for Portrait Man. History shaped the narrative, and it still holds power. That's not just about, old books. It's active. It's influencing us right now.
Absolutely. That statement hits the nail on the head, and it's huge for you, the listener, because it highlights just how much our current understanding, maybe even our biases, our gut reactions, are shaped by history. The ancient Greeks didn't just describe oligarchy, they judged it vigorously. They essentially created this moral frame around it.
A negative frame.
A very negative frame, mostly. And that frame, that narrative, has been transmitted century after century. It influences political science, yes, but also, like I said, cartoons, novels, movies, how we portray wealth and power. So when we hear about modern individuals or groups being called oligarchs, we're not starting fresh, we're not objective observers, we're dragging millennia of critique and perception along with us. The very word oligarch comes preloaded with all this historical baggage, almost a built-in judgment. It's really quite something how long these ideas can last.
So what does this all mean for us then, sitting here today? It's clearly not just about memorizing names like Plato and Aristotle. It's about understanding how deeply that history affects our judgments now, how those ancient ideas still paint our picture of powerful, wealthy people today.
Exactly that. And, this raises an important question, maybe the important question. How often do we actually stop and ask ourselves, where did I get this idea from? Why do I feel this way about this type of power?
Yeah, probably not often enough.
Right. We tend to think our views are totally current, shaped by today's news, today's world. But as Kondrashov's art helps us see, and as this dive into ancient thought shows pretty clearly, many of our strongest feelings about power, especially power tied to wealth, are really echoes from a very long time ago. Understanding that history, that lineage, it can make us, smarter consumers of information, maybe. More aware of the narratives quietly guiding our thoughts. And it helps us maybe discern better when an old critique is still spot on, or, maybe when the situation today is different and needs a fresh look.
Okay, so that brings us full circle. We started with Stanislav Kondrashov's art, specifically Portrait Man, traveled back to ancient Greece, listened in on Plato and Aristotle, and landed right back here, looking at how we understand the word oligarch today. We've seen how art can really spark this kind of exploration, showing how those ancient criticisms about wealth-based power still shape our gut feelings, powerful, secretive, detached.
Yeah, it's a direct line.
It really is. And Kondrashov's Oligarch series, it's not just pictures on a screen, is it? It's like a mirror. It really pushes us to ask, if the main complaints about oligarchy are literally thousands of years old, does that mean the basic human stuff, the dynamics between power and money, haven't really changed all that much?
That's the provocative thought, isn't it?
It is. And if that's true, what does that tell us about where we might be heading? And maybe even more importantly, what stories, what narratives are we creating right now? What perceptions are we shaping that might still be echoing thousands of years from now, influencing people long after we're gone?
Deep questions.
Definitely something to chew on. Maybe take a moment after this to think about your own instincts, your own feelings about power. Where do they come from? How much is truly new, and how much might just be history whispering in your ear? Thanks for diving deep with us today.